What was by far your worst ever intimate experience? When I was 21, I was in a sorority. Every year we used to raise funds and send our graduating sisters to someplace fun for spring break. That year we decided on Vegas, so I and 5 other of my friends went there for a few nights. I ended up hooking up with this obscenely rich middle-aged guy there. It wasn't planned or anything. I actually don't care for older men and think it's creepy when they hit on me by default. But my friends and I had a crappy first day when these guys we met ended up getting too drunk and rowdy that it became a turn-off, so we moved on. We got invited to this private party in one of the penthouse suites at our casino, so we said F it and went. The party was surprisingly great. These middle-aged guys had the whole 5,000 square foot suite to themselves. They had some bartenders, a DJ playing this weird fusion music that otherwise really set the vibe, and there was a caterer making these delicious finger foods, etc. Anyway, I found out it wasn't a bunch of rich middle-aged guys hosting this, it was one really rich guy bringing his buddies along for a good time. I know because I ended up talking to him. He was 42 at the time and seemed chill. We were talking about his traveling for a while, and when I mentioned I lost my vape pen on the casino floor earlier, he told me he had a volcano vaporizer set up in this strain called wedding cake in his personal suite. I'm not naive. I knew he was basically asking me to sleep with him, but at that point I was starting to get buzzed, and after meeting those guys earlier I was getting H-rny and wanted the D, so I went along with it. So anyway, we go in the room, get baked, and sure enough we start intimacy. Everything got hazy at this point, but I remember getting ready to give him brain and being surprised at how big he was. He asked me if he could nut in my nostril. Now I really don't like getting nut in my nostril, but I just wanted to get through with this. And get effed and go to bed, so I said sure. The last thing I remember was asking him to nut in my nostril and trying my best to sound convincing. I woke up at 5-ish, still in a slight haze. He was snoring softly next to me. The shame started creeping in. My whole womanhood was sore. The last time it felt like that was when I had intimacy with a hung guy, so I'm guessing we had piv at some point. I slipped on my dress, grabbed my shoes and took the elevator to my floor. I shuffled down the hallway. There were a few other couples, mostly older ones, shuffling down the hallway too. I got to my room and went into the bathroom, and I looked in the mirror and I was horrified. I had dried nut all over my face. All over my face, all in my hair, all over my chest, my arms, everywhere. I walked down that long hallway glazed like a fresh donut.
Update: I don't know how to help my wife's anorexia, which she developed after I blew our savings buying my mother a house. I talked to my wife Allie when I came down for Christmas after my mom's house sold, and based on what I'd been reading, I pushed the eating disorder thing a bit in my initial opening to the conversation. She just sat and listened to me. I told her I was scared about her starving herself, that she could die, that I empathized because I had an addiction too. Called her out on the pro-ana sites and lack of food. I don't think I'll ever forget her reaction after I finally shut up. She just laughed. This really cold and angry kind of laugh I have honestly never heard come out of her mouth in the almost decade I've known her. I literally just had a nightmare about it the other night. It was followed by her saying, "Are you serious right now?" She launched into what can only be described as an avalanche of anger and incredulity wrapped in a bomb. She ranted on for about 10 minutes. She said that in the beginning of the year when she'd left, she apparently got really into fitness and nutrition, and after a couple of months started training for a half marathon. She pulled up her calories in an app on her phone and gave it to me. They were all probably more than what I eat, mostly tofu, rice, beans, veggies, and protein supplements. Always over 2,000 calories a day. She told me that she'd worked her way up from nothing to going 10 miles a day. She loved it, but I was so engrossed in my own addiction and 12-step stuff that she didn't really mention it because she didn't want me to crap on that too, because I had a habit of not really saying much about her accomplishments. She kept that up all year until fall when she went back to SoCal. I didn't mention it in my last post because I didn't think it was pertinent, but I had a relapse in late September, early October. It spent a lot of cash we didn't have, but I guess I didn't really realize how that would affect her. She apparently couldn't afford to eat. She stopped training because she couldn't buy enough groceries to even eat enough in general. She started crying and practically yelling at this point and told me about how her stomach started growling during one of her classes loudly, to the point where another teacher came up to her between classes and asked her about it. I'll never forget, ever, Allie yelling at me and saying, "Do you have any idea how humiliated I was?" I felt, and still feel, like an absolute piece of crap. The pro-ana sites were bookmarked from early October, not in her recent browser history like I'd thought. She said she ended up there after Google searches had lended results that amount to just eat food when she literally could not. She said she felt disgusting and horrible even reading through those sites, but that they were the only things that got her through her classes without public humiliation. She said that practically not eating for a month was agony. The amount of guilt I feel is incredible. I asked her why she didn't say anything, and she said that after multiple conversations about money and begging me to budget, she finally gave up and just got her own bank account. She did bring up what was mentioned here, about my thinking of her as so strong and unbreakable and how much pressure that put on her. She was crying at this point more than yelling, saying how she lost her best friend to an addiction and how this hadn't been a partnership in a long time and how alone she felt. How the program was almost as bad as my addiction because it was the only thing that started to matter to me. I guess she had a point. I went to almost 2 meetings a day. It was like a second job. We talked a lot about all of this, but I eventually did convince her to come back to Oregon and work on our marriage. I made a big effort and got a new therapist too in addition to the one I had. We started counseling together. I hired a financial advisor and started to seriously budget. We bought a house with the profits from my mom's place. At this point, I really thought the update I'd be writing was, it wasn't anorexia, I was a jerk, but with therapy and love it's happily ever after. But I, of course, had to go and royally screw this like I always do. In my new therapy sessions, my therapist helped me realize that a lot of my issues come from a place of not knowing who I am. He gave me a lot of homework assignments, one of which was on who I thought I was supposed to be in a marriage and if that was who I wanted to be. I don't really know what happened, but I was so tired of feeling guilty and tired of feeling like I failed as a husband and just sick of therapy and everything. I was tired of working hard all the time emotionally. I missed my addiction, I missed not feeling so much responsibly. I was tired of strict budgets. I just fantasized about back when I was in college and single and none of it mattered. What I wrote on the page was raw and full of resentments I didn't know I even had and had a lot of stuff about Allie. I looked at it after I wrote it and it didn't even sound like me. It wasn't even true. I was just angry and hurt and feeling so much shame it was like I couldn't handle it anymore. It honestly disturbed me how ugly it sounded, because they were things I didn't know I even thought about. I left the paper on my desk and figured I'd look at it when I got back from work. Long story short, Allie found it. Allie read it. I came home with a note taped to it that simply said, I do not deserve this. She's right. She doesn't. She moved everything she had to the office and divided rooms while I was at work. She even put a lock on the door. I sent an email trying to explain that I didn't even mean it but got no response. She literally didn't speak to me for 2 weeks and would walk out of the room when I came in. A week ago she sat me down and told me that since we just bought the house, we'd likely lose thousands in closing costs so it didn't make sense to sell. I agreed. She told me that she was, however, filing for a divorce. And possibly going back to California. Then she left. It has hurt just writing this and remembering it, because I think I broke the heart of the woman I love more than anything. And she's gone and I miss her so much. She's back to not speaking to me. Half of me wants to beg her to come back, but I don't think I can keep any of the promises I have been making to her. I think I need to be single for a while and just focus on therapy. I don't know what's wrong with me or why I keep doing these things that hurt myself and others, but I need to get a handle on that before I think of tackling anything else. It cost me my marriage. It almost cost me my job. I think it's robbed my whole life. Allie seems good from what I've seen. Her sides of the fridge and pantry are filled with food and I saw her eating a giant salad the other day on the deck. So yeah. I think the eating disorder wasn't a thing, just something I clung to as not to have to focus on me anymore. I saw her the other day at the gym. This guy with bulging muscles was chatting her up near the weights and I thought I heard him ask her to dinner. She did that adorable blushing thing she did back when we were first dating, and I don't know what she said but I feel nauseous thinking about it. I hate myself. I want to hate muscle guy too, but I just can't. Nut was so good I passed out and woke up in the shower. My girlfriend and I have been dating for 2 years now. We have always been very active in the bedroom. Both of our problems stem from the fact we take a long time to finish. We always try to spice things up with toys and it definitely gets the job done but it never manages to transfer us to an alternate reality like a 10 out of 10 intimate experience can. We were recommended a SX chocolate called Tabs chocolate from a friend and ordered it. We agreed not to touch each other until the SX chocolate arrives and maybe it will deliver something outstanding. When the rectangular box arrived my girlfriend and I were very excited. We ate half a square each of chocolate in the evening and roughly 2 hours later we got into bed. By the time we did I could barely contain myself and so could she. I threw her onto the bed and this got her going like putting gasoline onto a fire. We made out for a few minutes and she started going down on me before popping some sour candies. She has done this in the past and it delivered great results but nothing otherworldly. This time however, not only did my toes curl, I was literally drooling. I ended up finishing about 10 minutes later, 10 minutes which felt like eternity. As I was finishing, she kept going. This chocolate made me super sensitive. My vision literally went white and I lost my ability to speak as my girlfriend was at the point of suffocation but would not stop. After I finished, my legs shook for a good 15 minutes and I was breathing like I had just ran a marathon. My eyes were rolling back and the whole time she kept softly massaging. I buzzed again, and then woke up in the bathroom, in the shower with her. She claims I passed out and as I looked up she said she felt the Tabs chocolate was destroying her and was using her adult toy in the shower. I ended up helping her, and afterward she slumped and I had to carry her into the bedroom where we both went 2 more rounds. She woke up with a sore abdomen and thighs the next day and we both agreed this chocolate is the best purchase we have ever made. I don't know how to help my wife's anorexia which she developed after I blew our savings buying my mother a house. The last year and a half has been really rough for my wife and Allie. I got a job offer we couldn't refuse and moved from SoCal to Oregon. Money has been tight due to some bad financial decisions that I have made, such as alcohol and blow, and in an alcoholic binge I found myself blowing our savings to buy a house for my mom to live in. After this, Allie almost divorced me but stayed. Allie had a miscarriage about a year ago and fell into a depression when we moved, and I was in the midst of an addiction I wasn't yet facing. Everything was crazy and came to a head in February when she went down to SoCal to visit family for a week, but it turned into her being gone for 3 months when my addiction problems really became clear to me. I took some time to figure myself out, went to 12-step, and Allie finally came back home in May. I noticed immediately that she had lost a ton of weight. She's always been a curvy woman, but in 3 months I swear she had dropped probably 40 pounds. Her pants were literally starting to fall off her. We've had some rocky moments, and for work she traveled a lot during the summer too. When Allie came back, she had lost even more weight, and she told me that she was taking her old teaching job back in SoCal for the semester so that she could earn more money. I got a roommate while she was gone, and she's renting a room there. Money has been tight, and I finally had to sell the house my mom has been staying in because we were drowning financially. My mom hates me, but I don't know what else to do. The house is in SoCal, so Allie has been going up to it a lot to clean and make repairs. I come down to help with that and move some weekends. Every time I see her, she looks thinner and thinner. I thought it was excessive, and I started looking at her shelf and fridge area in the house she's staying in. There's almost nothing there. Besides protein powder and rice and some frozen vegetables. There isn't anything on our joint account for takeout or anything either. Her mom bought her a new pair of jeans last month, and they're 2 sizes smaller than what she got from Goodwill in August. Then I used her computer to look something up and saw a pro-Ana site pop up in her history with bookmarks on how to stop your stomach from growling without eating and tips for not eating. One of the tips was buying a multivitamin, something she had never done before, but then I found a bottle of them in her dresser. I tried to bring it up with her family, but they all told me that they're just happy she is finally losing weight, and when I mentioned the pro-Ana stuff, I was told that someone can't be anorexic if they're overweight. I know Allie has wanted to lose weight for a long time, but this seems like way too much too fast, even if she isn't anorexic. My boss tried to strong-arm me into not giving me my promised Christmas vacation, so I resigned and cost him $700,000. I was brainwashed at an early age that loyalty to your corporate company and hard work would add countless zeros to your paycheck. I remained optimistic after receiving year after year of 3% raises and working holidays. I missed my children's first steps, their school functions, and other life events so I could make the CEO more money. After the passing of my stepfather and my boss calling me during the funeral, asking me to troubleshoot an issue while my mom cried into my shoulder, enough was enough. I changed companies and made a personal pledge to put family first and my career a distant third or fourth. Fast forward to the present day. I find myself as the cornerstone of our department. Many of our clients' processes are automated through a custom API developed by me. I have maintained a thorough documentation library on how to support the API, the reports, and all of its dependencies. I have offered to train backup so we are not single-threaded. My manager told me no way, we would never do anything to lose you. Up to now, life was good. At the beginning of December, another company was audited by the government and found to be out of compliance. They hired our company to regain their compliance by the end of the year or risk fines near $750,000. The other company dragged their feet getting us the information we needed to start on the work. I saved my vacation days so I can take the week between Christmas and New Year's off and have been doing this for a while, and every year my boss promises to give me time off. I spend it with my kids to make up for all the time I lost when I worked when they were younger. This time is very precious to me. Last week and this week, I have been notifying the project manager and my manager about my time off. I let them know I would need the other company's information soon so I can start on it. I offered to work extra hours to ensure my piece would be finished prior to Christmas Eve. On Tuesday, my manager called me and told me the company finally sent the data I requested over 2 weeks ago. He looked beaten because he knew what was about to happen. I told him who I should walk through the project with because I'm off after Christmas. My manager says, "I'm sorry, but I have to ask you to work. I declined your time next week." I asked, "What happens to my vacation time?" My boss says, "I'm sorry. You know the rules. Use it or lose it. I fought for you but HR wouldn't budge." I drafted my resignation letter after the call, set it to delay delivery on Monday at 8 a.m., and closed up shop. ABC Company will now pay $750,000 because nobody knows how to program that system since there is no backup. Our other clients will be expecting their monthly, quarterly, and annual reports within the first week of January. No one knows how to do this. We had 6 projects in progress involving extensive API and reporting, now those projects are dead in the water. 7 clients prepaid for API and automation upgrades in 2022 Q1. I don't know what will happen to those. Please remember. Family first. You never get that time back. I exposed my incompetent boss for using chat to save his butt during meetings and he's been ignoring me ever since. My boss Vince is the co-owner of our company and is a bit incompetent at his job. His inability to speak English greatly aids to this. In his defense, English isn't our native language where we live and work, but Vince has still always been insecure with his communication skills. Considering I work at a marketing agency, we have to communicate in English a lot, and since I am fluent in English, Vince tends to get self-conscious when he sees me communicating in English, whether that be with a client or a coworker. Despite this, however, Vince and I have a pretty friendly relationship for a boss and employee. We only have a 5-year age gap, and we'll joke around about personal stuff sometimes, like when I tease him for sleeping on the couch after working late and irritating his wife. Or when he gives me a hard time whenever I pick terrible gifts for my girlfriend. It's all in good fun. We've even hung out outside of work. Vince scored some courtside tickets to a basketball game last year and invited me along. So all this to say, we're friendly but still maintain professionalism. However, last month, Vince has obviously started using ChatGPT to write things like birthday messages, work anniversary greetings, congratulatory notes when someone lands a new client, etc. on our company group chat. I noticed the change immediately. He used to just write quick 5-word greetings, but suddenly they were these 10-sentence formal messages using words like gratitude and phrases like with utmost confidence. This is a man who forgot the word for ketchup a month ago. So last Monday, we had a working lunch at my office to discuss the deck I had just completed for an upcoming client meeting. Then, as we were wrapping up, Vince asked me casually if I'd noticed him putting in more effort with his messages lately. And like an idiot, instead of just agreeing politely, I made some joke and said, "Of course, looks like ChatGPT has been doing some heavy lifting lately." Vince immediately got defensive and started ranting about how dare I call him out. There's nothing wrong with using ChatGPT for work stuff, it's efficient and helps him communicate better in English. I tried to backtrack and say I didn't mean any offense, I agree there's nothing wrong with using ChatGPT in moderation. I was just trying to give some friendly feedback so that maybe he could use better prompts and customize the output a bit to sound more natural coming from him. But at that point, Vince was too ticked off, called me an a-hole and stormed off. Of course, I didn't want the incident to damage our relationship long term. Vince had been an amazing mentor and friend to me. I'd hate for some dumb joke to ruin the mutual respect we have for each other. So later that day I just came to Vince's office and apologized. He simply smiled and said it was fine. However, the entire week he has been giving me the cold shoulder. We only interacted when discussing work. I tried making jokes about other stuff, but he's not acknowledging them. Also, since then, he has gone back to his usual 5-word greetings. I fear that I might have just ruined the healthy work environment over that stupid joke.